Okay, so let us begin. Yeah, so yesterday we were able to look at, to have the overview of what you call the OGC web services that are titled OWS. And we were able to look at some of the items. So those who are online, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So let's proceed. We also looked at we did a brief introduction into GeoServer, whereby we installed the GeoServer. We looked at the user interface and all that. Then we were able to publish some layers, and of course we downloaded and installed the GeoServer. We were able to look at some items in the GeoServer user interface, which include the workspaces, stores, layers, and yeah, among others, the data stores and all that. Then we were able to look at some layer previews. However, we had a challenge looking at displaying the raster data, in particularly the WMS, which is a web map service. And we also just mentioned what we call the GeoWebCache, which is called GWC. So we shall be looking at that also today. And we also looked at the application of GeoServer in various organizations. And we were able to do a demo using the GeoPortal for WFP, World Food Program, GeoPortal. So let's see what we are going to do. We are going to revisit the raster visualization issue that we had yesterday. So we have a solution for that. And what we are going to do, if you have downloaded that data, you'll notice that we have a GeoServer installer, if you have downloaded the files. So we are going to reinstall our GeoServer. The GeoServer installation that we used yesterday has a challenge. We had challenges in trying to visualize data in web map service. And one among the objectives is that we need to be able to tackle or to view our layers in web map service. Otherwise, if we do not do that, we will not have achieved that objective. So we will also do some practical session, interactive session, whereby we look at the WMS and WFS operations, because there are certain operations and there are things that you can do with those services. So we are going to look at that. And then we will, of course, yesterday we had a brief view of our layers in GeoServer using the QGIS. So we shall also touch on that. We shall try and visualize, especially the raster data from GeoServer that we will have put in our GeoServers into the QGIS user interface. And then, okay, just to go a little bit back, today we're also going to look at the GeoWebCache. I think it has, I've placed it somewhere wrongly here. So today we are looking at that GeoWebCache because it is the one that is used to hand. If you have a very big data set or a raster, in this case, you can be able to use a GeoWebCache to optimize it. You remember yesterday we also had something, we talked of optimizing our GeoServer. So that is something that we are also going to look at. So I would urge you, if you have not downloaded the content that is under the GeoServer folder, please do so. I will guide you through that. The installation, the new installation contains file. It contains an installation file for what you call the JRE or the Java Runtime Environment. The installation for GeoServer for today requires that you have the Java Runtime Environment installed. So unlike yesterday's installation, which was very technical and manual, today's installation will just run our installers. We'll run the JRE and then we run the GeoServer installer and then we can proceed. But we shall do it step by step. So then we'll also, of course, install our GeoServer. And this, of course, solves the issue of accessing layers in WMS or web map service, the issue that we had yesterday, our yesterday session. So what we will begin with, we will begin by removing the previous GeoServer installations that we did yesterday. And yeah, so before we proceed with this installation, I would like you, or I would like us to do it together. So I would urge you to move into your program files in your Windows machine, in your program files. And let me do it, let's do it together. So I'll switch from the slides. So you need to open my computer. You'll have a window like this. So remember yesterday we installed our GeoServer inside local disk C, program files, and then we have a folder titled GeoServer. Okay, so you need to remove it. So you can just right click and delete. Click on delete, and when you click on delete, it should. Yeah, mine has disappeared, so it's no longer there. So you need to remove that folder. So are we all able to do that? Okay. Does anyone have an error message or something like that? So you notice that I do not have the GeoServer folder here. So that is one, okay? The other option, the other step now, you remember yesterday we added some variables, although for the variables, let's leave them as they are, okay? So after you have deleted the folder, now we cannot be able to run GeoServer because you have deleted that folder. So what you are going to do, you are going to move into your the content that you downloaded for today. And here it is. Let me see where it is. I have it under the software, GeoServer. So you need to be having at least these two files. Let me move this one. You need to be having GeoServer, this 2.20 and something titled JRE. So do you have the JRE with you in the downloaded files?
Yes.
So this is the JRE stands for the Java Runtime Environment. Let me just try and zoom in. So you need to have these two files to start with. So you need to run this JRE by double clicking on it. And it's going to display an installation wizard. So let's see how it looks like. It looks like this. It's somehow similar, somewhat similar to yesterday's. So you're just going to click on install. Then when you install, it will now begin the installation progress. It should not take a lot of time. No, it's not for yesterday. The one for yesterday is JDK. I've shared, there's a folder that I've shared today. It is updated. And it has a JRE and it also has that GeoServer installer. So the good thing about this is that these are just one-click installers, okay? You install and just click next, next, next into your wizard, and there you are, you have your GeoServer, okay? Unlike yesterday we were installing it using a manual method, and we ended up encountering challenges in displaying the layers in web map service in WMS. So if you have installed successfully, you need to have such a message. Anyone who has some other message, error of sorts? So let me make something clear. This file is not JDK. If you look at the name of the file is JRE-8 call that Windows. So this is the Java runtime environment, okay? This is a JRE file. It's not the file that we had yesterday. That's why we shared the link for downloading, because it is updated. It has updated installers. So just confirm to me that you've been able to install the JRE.
Yes.
Download. Pardon? Oh, you've downloaded it. So do you have the JRE? Oh, okay, you already have it. Okay, that's fine. Have you been able to download it, install it? Great. So let's proceed. So our next step will be installing this GeoServer. See this GeoServer file, 2.20. So this is an installer for Windows. So we didn't have this yesterday. Remember yesterday we had a zip file. So today we have this installer. So this is a simpler method of installing it. You just run this installer, and then it will display an installation wizard. Or you can close this installer if you have it on your screen for Java, because you have already installed it. Yeah, so I had already tried to install it. So allow me some few seconds to try and install it, because it's so you can also give ourselves time for those who have not been, who are downloading it and who are installing it, can be installing it, installing the Java JRE. Okay. Okay, so I'll move back to my installer. So I will just right click and click open. Or you can also double click it. And it should display this wizard. This is the GeoServer installation wizard. So this is a welcome page. And you can click next to continue. This is the other page for the license. You remember I told you this is an open source software, so it is this is a license. It's known as GNU General Public License. It's for most open source, and you can see that we have open source, Geospatial Foundation, and other licenses. So you may read the license and see what the terms are. Then once you have read, you click I agree. Then it is going to, why we installed JRE, this is because this is why we installed it. If you look at my screen, it's showing that please select a Java runtime environment. So if you have not installed the JRE, then you may encounter problems here, because you see this installer has already automatically identified the JRE that we have just installed in our previous step. So in the event that you do not have, it's probably telling you cannot find JRE, then please ensure that you have installed JRE. Do not install GeoServer before you've installed the JRE, okay? So I believe most of us have this, not all. So you'll click next. And when you click next, the next page is for the GeoServer. So why we removed the GeoServer is because you notice that this path is the same as for the other GeoServer. So likewise, ensure that you have already removed that GeoServer folder in your program files. Otherwise, it will somehow it will tell you that it can locate that file. I mean, the folder exists. Yeah, so as I was saying, it needs to show the JRE. So if you are seeing the path to your JDK, let me go back. The path here should be Java/JRE.
Oh, and on.
So it's not JDK. And where is this JRE coming from? It's coming from, we have already installed a JRE in a previous step, immediate previous step. So this is where this JRE is coming from. So you need to have this. If you do not have it, then you may have to browse to your local disk C program files inside Java. You see, I have the JDK for yesterday. We are not using this JDK. We are using JRE. So you need to ensure that this is what is being shown here. So if you have that, you click next, then it's going to show you this folder. Once again, remember we have deleted this folder in our previous step. So it should not be existing. So ensure that this folder does not exist. We have already deleted it as our first step. Then we'll click next. And then this is a menu that will display on our start menu folder. We are not going to change anything here. We'll leave it as it is. So I'll click next. And for the GeoServer data directory, I'll also leave it as it is for now, because there are files that GeoServer fetches from that GeoServer directory, that the ones that display our user interface, our about, and all that. So we'll click next. And then remember where we was at the port that GeoServer runs in. So you can leave it as it is. However, if you, for those who have some other softwares that are running in this port, like yesterday, one of our colleagues or some of our colleagues had some other softwares running on port 8080. Instead of affecting them, you can just try and change this into 8081 or 82 or something like that. And there's already a valid range that is shown here. You can set it into any number between 80 and this 65,000. But for simplicity purposes, we will leave it as it is, okay? Otherwise, if you change this, you may end up encountering challenges somewhere ahead. So we'll click next. And in our case, I will emphasize that you leave it, you set it to run manually. Otherwise, if we install it as a service, of course, it will be in the Windows services, which is okay. But I want us to set it to manually because we are going to run the startup file manually, okay? So you'll click on next, and it will show, just like many other wizards, it will show all the information that we have set, okay? As you can see on my screen, we have the installation directory, the data directory, installation type, Java runtime environment, and the web server port, okay? So if you are okay with this and everything here is fine, then you can click install, and it will start the installation process. As you can see the process, the installation process bar that is displayed in green. So after it has completed, it will show has been installed in your computer. Click finish to close. So have we at least reached at this point? Someone who is still configuring folders and JREs and all that? I'll be happy to repeat. Okay. So allow me some like 1 minute to uninstall this GeoServer that I have just installed. So our first step, what we did is that we removed this GeoServer. We had a GeoServer folder inside local disk program files, isn't it? So what we did is that we had an existing folder that is titled GeoServer, the one that we installed yesterday. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete it. This is for yesterday, not today. So once you have deleted it, it should not, we should not be seeing that folder here. So we are going to repeat the procedure. I'm also going to uninstall my Java, the JRE. So why are we doing this? As I've mentioned, we are repeating this procedure because the GeoServer that we had yesterday could not, we could not read our layers in WMS. We were only able to access our layers in WFS, the Web Feature Service, one of the OGC web services. But we importantly require WMS to do. We are going to do. We are installing GeoServer. This installer, we have tested it and the WMS is working. Okay, fine. So that's why we are using this. And there's also another thing. Yesterday we talked about optimization. We wanted to show you one of the pages in the GeoServer shows us the amount of RAM, the amount of computer memory that that GeoServer is using. So allow me to uninstall this the JDK. Yeah, so one of our colleagues is saying they are lost. Yeah, what you are doing is that we are installing a new GeoServer after deleting. Where is this GeoServer coming from? It is coming from the link that we had shared through our chats earlier today. And the same link has been shared in the chat, in the live chat. So you need to download the contents in that because you have the data folder, the folder that contains the data. And yesterday's data only had some few vector layers and also some few rasters. So today we have additional rasters. And one of the rasters is a big, not very big, but it's a big file. Okay, that's why you need to download that. Otherwise, if you do not have that data, then you may lag behind. So you better start downloading it. So I hope I've clarified on that. So I'm removing my JRE so that I can do the installation afresh because I am repeating it so that we can be able to move together. Okay. So So let's see, we can now view our downloaded files. So our files look like this. Software. So the files look like this. For the software, there's a software folder in your downloads. So we have GeoServer setup, and then we have what we call the JRE setup. These are the sizes here. The JRE is around 80 MB, and this one is 100 MB, thereabout, approximately. So we will begin by installing the JRE. So that file titled JRE, you can right click on it and click open. And this is the window this is what you see. So if you had already installed it, it is going to tell you that it exists. So please do not repeat that. If you have installed it, that's fine. This is for those who probably are picking up now or have just joined us now, or they have not run this. So let me click install. Then it will immediately start installing. Okay, and this one should install fast in your computer. It does not take a lot of time. Although for my case, this time it's taking some time. So once it's complete, it's almost complete here on my screen. Yeah, it should display this message. You have successfully installed Java. Okay. So just that. So we have Java JRE in our computer. This message confirms that. So I'll just click close. So we have installed our first component. Then after installing our first component, we're going to install our second component, which is GeoServer. And this is what it brings. We have this wizard. So this is our second component that we are installing. So this window has, what has brought up this window, I've double clicked on this GeoServer Win setup file, or right click and click open. So we will begin by installing, and this is the first page for the wizard, the welcome page. Then we'll click next, and it will display the license file, what you call the license agreement page. This is the license agreement page. You'll click I agree, and you see we have this. So if you do, I'll repeat again, if you do not have this JRE, if you have something else here, then click on browse and access or locate local disk C, go to your program files, and then there's a file folder written Java. Then inside Java we have JRE, not JDK, JRE, okay? So we'll click on JRE 1.8, this one. So where does this one come from? It's what you have just installed, okay? So what you have just installed. So when you click on JRE, you click OK, and we should not have any message errors here, or you can see that this one, there's a message or a label here that says this path is valid. Okay, it has detected that there's a JRE. Ideally, it should automatically detect it, okay? So we'll click next, and then this is our data folder for GeoServer, okay? So there are files that come with the GeoServer installer. So those files are going to be, they're going to be installed in this folder, including the GWC or the GeoWebCache. So just leave it as it is, okay? You will not change that. Then you click next, and then it will choose the start menu folder. So we leave it as we leave this one as it is. And then we'll click next, and then we have the GeoServer data directory. So this one we will also leave it as it is. Then you click next, and now here on the port number, that's what I was saying. I would advise you to just leave it as it is, port 8080, okay? And then you click next. Then there are two options here. You can either install your GeoServer as a service, or you can install your GeoServer. You can install it to run it manually. So in this case, you can choose either. It's up to you. So for mine, in my case, I will click on run manually, and then I'll click on next. And you notice that all those input folders, the directory paths, and the web server ports have already being shown here, the ones that we have already set, okay? So you'll click install, and then the installation progress begins. Okay, somebody is asking about the port number. So for the port number, you may have some other ports, other softwares that are using this port number. However, if for you to know that, you should be having a good understanding of the network ports in your machine. So I'm assuming most of us are not in the field of networking and all that. So that's why I've said that you stick to port 8080. But if you know that you have a port that is running port 8080, then you can set it to around maybe port 8081, 8082, 8080, 8088. So there are the numbers, there are some allowed ports. I think you can even set it to port 8000. Okay. So you can adjust your port number. However, your port number should not exceed, I think it is 6500 and something, 6555. So yeah. Yes. No, it's a different directory. As you can see, it is showing program data. I think C program data in the wizard. Yeah, so just leave it as it is. Yeah. Okay, then if it shows that folder, just leave. Okay, it's fine. It is because we set the path for GeoServer data directory. So if in the wizard it shows, thank you for that. By the way, if it shows the folder that we were working on yesterday as the GeoServer data folder, then click on. Then you can leave it as it is. Okay, whichever option it shows you on the. Yes. Your machine uses 32-bit. Okay, that is fine. So let me see what I'm going to do. So I understand that some of us are using a 32-bit machine. Let me confirm if we have a 32-bit GeoServer installer. Otherwise, if we do not have, then I think we may have to do something else. 32-bit GeoServer. And I think I mentioned this earlier. You notice that for the 32-bit, what is the RAM? What is the RAM of your machine? The memory, 8 GB. And also, if you can check for me the CPU, because I think probably your machine is 64-bit capable. Why I'm talking about this is because the 32-bit softwares and 32-bit machines are slowly becoming left. I mean, they are being left behind. They are becoming deprecated. The support is, is diminishing as we continue. So sooner or later, you may have to upgrade your machine to a 64-bit. So let me confirm that we have the 32-bit installer. So when you run the installer, the GeoServer installer, oh sorry, it's showing when you're running the JRE, isn't it? Yeah, I think for the GeoServer can work, if I'm not wrong. But for the let me check for the JRE. Allow me to check on that. Yeah, so I think we have the 32. Okay. Do you have access to the online chat? Okay, let me share the link there. So for those of us who have the 32-bit, I'm sharing the link with you. So you can download the 32-bit from that link. Maybe you can click on that link and confirm to me that you're able to download. Does it initiate a download? Yes. Yeah, so that is, I believe it should be a 32-bit installer. And for others, let me also share it for the sake of all of us. Let me share I'm going to add that installer in the shared folder, okay? Yeah. So thanks for that. At least I'm sure it will probably there are some of us who had the 32-bit. For the GeoServer, it should work. After you have installed the JRE, kindly run the GeoServer and see what will happen. Yeah, I believe it should. So yeah, so if you look at if you revisit the shared folder, you'll notice that we have 2 JRE installers. One that has times 64 and the other one that has I586 in the shared folder in Dropbox. So you notice that is the 32-bit installer. So for those who have the 32-bit machines, that installer will work for you. So let's proceed. So we have been able to install the GeoServer. I believe for the others, we've been able to install our GeoServer. So there's one thing that you will notice. If you click on start and then you type GeoServer, we have various files here. We have start GeoServer, stop GeoServer. And equally, if you click on your start and scroll down where we have the letter G, GeoServer, you see it has how many? It has four different whatever what are they called? The links or the it has 4 items: about GeoServer, GeoServer web portal, start GeoServer, and stop GeoServer. So I believe you'll agree with me that this is a more straightforward way than yesterday. Yeah. So if you want to start your GeoServer, you can just click start GeoServer. Okay. So let me click mine. And yeah, it will ask me if it wants to run it as administrator. Then it will display this window. You remember yesterday we were seeing this window, this kind of a window. So I'll repeat again, do not, as long as you're using GeoServer, do not close this window. Actually, you should just minimize it if you find it's obscuring your screen. It's not a very pleasant window, you know, it contains texts and it keeps on, it may keep on displaying things, okay? It is the window, it is the log window. So as long as GeoServer is running, you will be seeing this window. So do not close it. Otherwise, if you close it and try to access GeoServer, then you won't be able to access it. So the last line that should be appearing on your screen, it should be this. It should say started at after some minutes or after some seconds. So when you see this started, you can go to your browser, navigate to your browser. So let me open my browser. I already know that I set it to port 8080. So what I'll do, I'll just come here and type local host. And I believe I shared this as well in the chat. If you look at the history for yesterday. So we have GeoServer, localhost 8080 GeoServer. So when I click enter, let's see what happens. I believe it should display GeoServer. Does yours display the GeoServer? Yeah. Yeah, mine seems to be still loading. I don't have issues. So you can, for those who are, if you had not changed your port, then you should see, you should go to a link that I've pasted the link in which you should open in your browsers. That is if you did not change your port number, if you did not change it from 8080. So mine is taking some time, I don't know why. So let me probably restart the browser. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it seems to be taking some time. Okay, so let me stop. I've stopped the service. Let me restart it. Start the service again. So you can just come here, you know, on start. If you notice that your service is not running, you just click on start. You navigate to GeoServer, like on my screen, and then you click start GeoServer, and then it will display this window. So you may notice that your screen, my screen was not moving, or it had. So you can just click on this you can click somewhere in this inside this black window and you type enter in your keyboard. If you see like it's not moving or it's not doing anything. Okay, so let me try and check if it has decided to appear. Yeah, so you need to be having a page like this, okay? Do we have this at least? You have the login. So remember the username and the password are admin, and for the password is GeoServer. That is the default. So you can just log in like we did in our previous session. The username is admin, password is GeoServer. They are all in small letters, small caps. Okay. Anyone who is has challenges logging in? Okay. So, yes, please. Yes. There's an error. For no, when you're installing GeoServer. Yeah. Okay, so so you, for the rest of us, we're going to be looking at the user interface. And remember yesterday where we changed the name, contact information, and try and change it. By default, it's showing the ancient geographers. This is because that's how it has been coded. So when you install it for the first time, that's what it shows. And then you can also try and look at workspaces. We did this yesterday. So there are some existing workspaces in some of our geoservers. So can delete all the workspaces because I want us to create our own workspaces. Then create your workspace. Then in the workspace, you start with the workspace, which is the topmost. After you create the workspace, you create a data store. So the data store should point to your, if you have downloaded the data, when you extract that data in the C, you'll see we have a folder with GIS data. You can copy all the data information there. There's a folder that will take all the data. So when you copy those folders from the downloaded data. So if you're using a 32-bit machine, then 32-bit is there are some limitations because the GeoServer that we're installing does not have support for 32-bit variety systems. So we may need to upgrade your machine to a 64-bit. We need to upgrade your machine to that. So for us, let's download. For the namespace URI, you can just add the same name that you have added in your machine. So somebody is saying that they cannot find the GeoServer on their desktop. So the GeoServer exists here in the start. Okay, so we have it here under GeoServer start, or you can click on start and search GeoServer. Okay. You see the first option here is start GeoServer. So if you don't have this, then you'll have to do the manual way. You will have to go to your program files directory. We did this in our previous session. Let me just do it from the beginning. You open this PC. Mine is this PC, which is previously known as my computer. Then you click on local disk, you open program files, and inside program files, you have GeoServer. So inside this GeoServer, we have this bin folder. We did this yesterday. So you can you can double click on this. You can right click on startup and run as administrator. So that is if you cannot see your GeoServer. Okay, in the start menu. Okay, so for the namespace URI, it has worked. So let me log in also. Admin. GeoServer. Yeah, so for me, I have these some layers already that came with the GeoServer. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to click on contact information. You remember we looked at contact information previously. So I'll add my details there. I'll only add the name and the organization. So Joseph Karaoke. Then for the organization, I will maybe put something like predictive analytics. Yeah, so we have that. These are the rest of these, I can remove them, the emails and all that. And then I click on, or for the city, I can also add the city, Nairobi. Yeah, and then I click on save. So you'll notice now something changes here in the welcome page. It says this GeoServer belongs to predictive analytics. So another thing I will invite you to do, just click on server status. And you'll see some things here: status, data directory, logs, connections, JVM, JAI, maximum memory, and all these things here. So I want you to look at the memory usage and tell me what you see in your machines. So let me repeat. After you have logged into your GeoServer, go to the first link here under About Status, click on Server Status. Identify this under Status tab, the Status tab here, this one, we have memory usage. Could you look at what is your memory usage? Only one of the memories. Is it a quarter of RAM? I believe it should be a quarter. Remember what you said yesterday, GeoServer consumes, or Java applications, if you have not set the memory manually, or if you have not configured it, only consumes a quarter of your memory. That's why I was telling you, if you are using like a 4 GB laptop, it will only use 1 GB or 4 megabytes. Okay. So if you are going to do heavy RAS operations for handling of big data like big raster data, then 1 GB will be one operation. So, So have we been able to run the workspace? And the data, the layers and all that. So the another thing that I will also advise, if you have any software that you're running, if you know that you have a low memory, you at this point just try and close them. Or if you have your browsers and they have so many tabs, also try and see if you can be able to close anything that you're not using. Because the operation that we are going to so let's create the, yeah, there's somebody who has said that you can also start the GeoServer from services. But okay, we're avoiding some of this because, you know, it may confuse some of us, but for those who are interested, you can open your start and type services. That is if you have installed it in your service. You remember when we were installing, we clicked run manually or install as a service. So if you install as a service, it should appear on your services. The Windows services, they look like this. You'll notice actually we have another service for Postgres here. But even for GeoServer, it should appear, but mine does not have because I'm starting my GeoServer manually and not using service. So let's start. I will create a workspace. I'll do it quickly. Oh, I already have a workspace here. Let me remove it for the sake of those who do not have workspaces. Has it shown? Yeah. Yeah. So log in using the admin and GeoServer. So yeah. So in our case, we have a clean workspace. In my case, or in my computer. So what I'll do, I'll create a new workspace. The workspace is the topmost container, okay? Then under it, we have the data stores, and then we have layers. So I'm going to create a workspace. So I'm just going to call it GS workspace. So you can call yours as you wish. Then also for the namespace URI, I'll just add the same GS_workspace. We type here workspace. Yeah, and then I'll click on this default. But if it's the only workspace, even if I don't click, it will set it as the default workspace. So there's another tab here for security, but you're not going to look at that. So I already have my workspace, okay? So remember, when you create a workspace, I would advise you to click on it, the one that it is showing there. So if you click on it, it is a link. If you look at it here, it will open the settings. We did this in our previous session. And then you enable these services because these services are what we are going to be using. We are going to be using the web map tile service, the web catalog service, the web coverage service, web feature service, and the WMS. So we just click on all of them. And then you can click on save. So let me repeat, I have already created my new workspace, and it is named, the workspace name is being shown here, GS_workspace. So I'll click on the workspace, and then under services, it's highly important that you check on these services to enable those services in that particular workspace. So then after you have done that, you can click on save. So after you have done that, then we have the second option, which is the store. We were able to add some data stores yesterday. So for the sake of those who do not have the data files, I mean, they had not set up their folder. I'll also repeat that. So let me minimize my browser and my files. So I'll go back to my file system. So in our previous session, we created a folder that is titled GS Data, which is in local disk C. Okay. So these are the contents. Let me first confirm that I have the data files. Should be somewhere in my desktop. Yeah, so since I already have them, so in your case, your local disk C may be empty, or it may, let me delete this folder. So we have this kind of a situation. In my local disk C is empty. So for those of us who do not have, I would advise you to create your data folder in the local disk C. And we did this yesterday. So for those who have it, well and good. What you may have to do, you may have to create a new, inside the raster, you may have to add 2 extra files, because basically that's what we added in that data from yesterday, from our previous data. So for those of us who do not have this folder, I'll create a new folder and name it GS_data. Yeah, so let me do a refresh. So here it is empty. So navigate to where you have the downloaded files. I think they're in a zip file. So in your case, you need to unzip them. So if you unzip them, they should appear as, let me show you. They should appear like this. There's a folder titled raster and there's a folder titled vector. So for the vector, it has the data that we were using yesterday. Nothing has changed. And for the raster, we have new candidates. We have, actually for the one that you had yesterday, MSA, it is too big. So you may have to either remove it or you can leave it there, but we are not going to use that. So I have we have 2 new candidates, I believe, or the 3 candidates. We have the MSA_town, we have the NBI AOI, and we have Samburu. And I think this, for the Samburu one, we used it in our first sessions, in our first week's sessions. So these are all GeoTIFFs. You remember when we checked on raster files, these are GeoTIFFs. So this is the case that we have. So in the extracted folder, it looks like this. It has raster and vector. So what I'm going to do in my case, if I do not have these folders, I'm going to copy them from the downloaded data from our shared folder and paste them here. So I've added them in this folder called GIS Data that is in my local disk, okay? Local disk C. So I'll minimize and then I'll go back to my Geo server. So now I can add my stores. So we looked at the types of stores that are supported by Geo server. We have the vector data sources and then we have the raster data sources. So in this case, today I'll begin with the raster data sources. Let me try and zoom in. So we have these raster data sources and then we have the GeoTIFF. Since we are working with GeoTIFFs, I'll add the GeoTIFF. And remember, for the GeoTIFF, since we have 3 GeoTIFFs, we may have to repeat this step thrice, okay? You cannot add a directory of GeoTIFFs in GeoServer. You have to add individual GeoTIFFs, okay? And then just unlike what we do with the shapefiles, you can add a directory of shapefiles. We did in our previous session. So I will begin with the raster and I'll click on this GeoTIFF. And then the data source name, I can just call it something like GS_raster. So we have the GS_raster. And for the description, I'll also add the same. And I'll just paste it here. Now, yesterday, there is also a challenge that we had, if you remember. In our browse, when you click the browse button, it wasn't displaying anything, if you recall. So I will invite you to click on browse. There's a browse button next to the connection parameters. There's a browse link. Could you click on it? So it should display something like this. Yesterday, our installation for yesterday had some issues. This included. You were not able to browse. You had to go to the file system, copy the path, and then paste the path. Okay. Somebody is stuck. So let me repeat. I believe that we have already created our workspace, and this is our workspace. So the next step is creating a store. We need to create a data store. So what do? You click on the stores link, and then you click on add new store. So when you click add new store, it displays this store page. And it has vector data sources and raster data sources. And finally, at the end, at the bottom, it has other data sources. So we are working with GeoTIFFs. So click on GeoTIFF. So when you click on GeoTIFF, it displays this page that states add raster data source. And description, this is GeoTIFF, which stands for tagged image format. Okay, somebody has asked me to start from workspace. Okay, so if you have different workspaces, when you install GeoServer by default, it comes with some data. We do not want to use that data, okay? So what the first thing we will do, we are going to click on this, check on this main, this is the title bar. You see it has things that are in bold. So you'll check this checkbox and remove. So actually, let me remove this workspace that I've created. So if you have workspaces that, you know, I think they are titled site, boulder, all those things, you remove them. Tiger, you should remove them. So how do you do that? You check on this checkbox. It will check all the list of all workspaces that are here. Then you remove them. And it will ask you this, you are about to remove the following objects. So confirm, these are confirmation message. So we'll click OK. And the workspace has disappeared. So whenever you delete a workspace, actually, be careful. If you delete a workspace and you had already added those data sources, layers, they also disappear. Okay? So the workspace is this big container. The workspace is like, think of it like the administrative unit 0, which is a country. Then if you remove a country, then you remove the other sub. If they are counties or states or all that, they disappear with it, okay? So the workspace is the parent, what you refer to as the parent. And the child of the workspace is a store. So, and you should be very careful when you delete a workspace, you'll also delete the data that the child or the children, which are the layers and the stores. So let's proceed with creating the workspace. So I'm repeating this for the sake of those who are behind. So add new workspace, and then for the workspace name, it displays this new workspace page. So I'll just type GS underscore work space. But you have liberty to name yours as you wish. So I'll just copy these and paste it in the namespace URI. And actually, let me not check this default workspace. Let's see what happens. So if you're satisfied with the name and the workspace, then you click on save. So what happens when you do not add a name? I've removed the name. Let me click save. It automatically shows some error here. Field name is required. So you need to have a name. You cannot have an empty workspace or a nameless workspace. So we'll add GS workspace. Then I'll click on save. So what happens? It now displays our new workspace. Okay. So whenever you have, let's say you are dealing with multiple data sets. Probably you are dealing with vegetation. You are dealing with something like cadastral data. You are dealing with administrative data, population data, and you want to arrange them in themes. So in this case, you can probably use you can create more workspaces that are particular to a given thematic data, that fall within a big group, okay? So that's why we have workspaces. You can create as many as you wish, as long as they are probably thematic. Yeah. So we have this GS workspace. The first step is you click on this workspace that you have created, and you'll notice that under the services, we do not have any check boxes. These boxes are empty. So ensure that you check all of them for the services, the OGC web services. And then you can also enable settings. You ensure that under settings, this enable is checked. It is like this by default. It has nothing below here between the enabled and the save button. So you'll check on this checkbox and you'll notice that it will display some information here. And then you will click on save. So after you have saved, then that's it. We have our workspace ready. The next step will be creating the store. So you'll click on stores here. This link under data, we have stores. So when you click on stores, it shows displays stores up here. So you'll add new store. Likewise, if you have some other stores that you know, for the other data, I believe after you have removed the workspace, there are no longer any stores. But if by any case you might see some stores there that are not pertinent to what you're doing today, you can remove them. So we will add a new store. And when you add a new store, it displays vector data sources and raster data sources and other data sources. So we are going to begin with the raster data sources. And under raster data sources, we have GeoTIFF. That is what we are working with in this in our session. So we'll click on GeoTIFF. And when you click on GeoTIFF, it displays the workspace, then the data source name, description. So we need to add, you notice that the data source name has a star. This star means that this field is mandatory. So if you try and click on save, you notice that it complains. It says that the field data source name is required. And then also the path, this path is mandatory. So it went and looked for this file data example and it has not seen that. So it complains that it could not find this file. So we will start with the data source name. So in this case, I'll just call it GIS raster. GS underscore raster. Then I will copy this, and then I will add it in the description as well. Although for the description, you can add something more meaningful. You can probably say, you know, raster training data. Training data for the description. So type something else, data. So we have raster training data, and then there is this checkbox. We leave it as it is. Then for the URL, I was saying that in our previous sessions, when you click on browse, it was not showing anything. There's a browse link here after this file extension, this field, there's a browse. So this browse enables us to be able to point GeoServer to the directory that contains our GeoTIFF, okay? So I'll just click on browse, and then I'll click on data directory. It's in local disk C. When you click on this, it shows you some different things, local disk C, home, and data directory. So the home directory is your directory users, you know, John Doe users / Jane Doe or something like that, your username. That's your home folder. But in my case, I've placed my files in the local disk C. So I'll click on local disk C, and then you notice that we have these GS data. And then I have vector and raster. So since I'm adding the raster data, I'm going to click on this raster, and you'll see that I can be able to see my GeoTIFFs, okay? The 3 GeoTIFFs. So I'll click on one. So you can only add one file raster at a time. So you'll notice that the good thing is that it also displays the size. So for the MSA, the first file you have, it is 499 or almost 500 megabytes. The second one, which is an NBI underscore AOI, it is 14 MB. And then we have Samburu, which is 171 MB, okay? So I will start with my first, which is MSA town. And you'll notice that this path has now changed. It is similar to the path that we were copying and pasting yesterday. But in this case, we have just clicked on browse and pointed to our particular TIFF file. So after you have input these, you'll click on save. And you'll notice that it displays, it navigates automatically to this new layer page. And it is, in short, what it's doing, it's asking us whether we want to publish this layer. You'll notice that we have our layer, MSA underscore town, and action, and action we have publish. Okay, so we are not going to publish it now. I want us first of all to add all our data sources. So let me repeat this. So there's somebody who says that they do not have, you do not have NAI underscore AOI, do you? In your data, in the downloaded data?
I don't have. I only have 2. Samburu and Mombasa.
You have all the 3 files. Okay, yes? Yeah, I know you can ignore that. That is for the data that we were using previously. So you do not have you only have, let me go to the sources. the raster sources, you only have what? You don't have the 3 files. What do you have? Also, you don't have the NBI. Does anyone have the 3 files? You have the 3 files, including the NBI, AOI. So that file is missing, I believe. Or does somebody have it from the download, the download that we shared?
It's missing.
Anyone who has it? Anyone who has it? The 3 files? Okay, let me navigate to the folder. So in our raster folder, we need to be having these 3 files. Do we have these 3 files, or we have 2 or 1? Or some have 1, some have 2. Do you have the 3 files? You have the 3 files. Fine. You have downloaded that data. So if you've downloaded that data, there's a raster folder. Could you find it? Try and check the raster folder for your downloaded data. You should download that data. You should, if you downloaded the data for yesterday, it only had 1 GeoTIFF. Is it 1 or 2, I think? Yeah, so today we have 3 GeoTIFFs, and they appear as you see them on my screen. So please ensure that you have downloaded all the 3 files. So just open your download. If you have downloaded after I shared the download link, and we shared the link earlier today. So if you downloaded it past, I think 11 a.m. today. Yes, please. For the downloads. The link is not working. Which link did you use? Do you have the 3 files? And Samburu. Okay. Not under GS folder. Okay, so I think there's a bit of a confusion. So let me clarify this. Let me clarify that. I understand where, at least I understand. I get now where we are confused. So there's a shared folder. The shared folder structure looks like this. We have, I think it is this one. We have GeoServer and PostGIS, okay? We worked with PostGIS. Today, what are we working with? Or we on GeoServer. So if you open your GeoServer, we have 3 folders. We have data, presentations, and software, okay? So we have under data, we have GS_data, and then we have the raster zip. So if you look at these, let's look at the first zip file, the GS data file. It's too big to preview, unfortunately. So if you look at the raster zip, not sure whether it will open. It has just vanished. I don't know if I can be able to see the size. Yeah, so this raster is 258 MB. So this raster.zip file, okay, has the MSA town and it has NBI TIFF, okay, NBI AOI. So you need to download these raster, these raster.zip. And the other one, I believe it is the one that has the 3rd file, which is, does it have the Samburu? The link is not working. How? Okay, let me reshare it then, because I'm also becoming confused because somebody, I think there's some of us have been able to download and they have the 3 files. So anyway, to deal or to remove the confusion, let me just reshare these. So I'm sharing the whole folder, and at this point, I would advise you just to download, download everything, so that you can check in your data what you have and what you do not have. So confirm that the link is working, please. I'll also try and confirm on my end. So it's showing it is showing a 404 error. Okay. Okay, yeah, there seems to be issues. Let me see. So which link is working? Is there any link that is working or none? None is working. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the parent folder. Currently, it's telling me that I do not have permissions. It's my folder, but it's telling me I do not have permissions. So let's see. Okay, I think I know why. Let me share. Okay, so I think there is a link that could be working. Let me confirm to me that this link is working. It's also saying 404 error. Okay, so allow me to do some things here so that you can make this folder visible. I'm also suspecting it could be limited by the number of accesses. Could be multiple. So, but I'm surprised somebody was able to download it. Yeah, because the data that we have for yesterday, the TIFF, if anyone has tried to publish it, you'll notice that it may not be showing in our machines. Okay, so I'm sharing another folder. Your server. Okay, so there seems to be some challenge in sharing. I think we have so many people who have accessed it or accessing it. So yeah, fortunately I don't have one. Let's see. Okay, let's see whether this link works. What about the link that I've just shared now? Or it's still showing errors? Is it displaying the folder? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm suspecting. Okay. Okay, so let's see something else I'm also trying, an alternative. Okay, so can Can you access that folder? There's a link that I've shared. Can you access it? There's a link that I've shared. Does it have the folders? They're empty. What about now? Are there two folders? Raster and vector. Okay, so what we will do, I'm currently uploading the data, so do not download anything from that folder. Yeah? Yeah, so the data is currently uploading, so give it some time. It's about, it is about halfway done. So we have the raster and the vector data. Yeah, so I've just thought of an alternative, a quick alternative, so that we do not spend a lot of time on it. So let's open the. So I've shared the link in the chat, in the live chat. Yeah, so I think there's a challenge with this Dropbox. If you share data that has, if people have, I think there's a maximum number of accesses to a given folder. Yeah, so we are at 80% done. 90. Luckily, the internet is fast. So. Yeah, so you can now be able to download the contents of your raster folder. Okay. So according to my screen, the 3 raster files are already there. So you use the link that I've just copied right now. You can ignore the other ones that we shared, the ones that have errors. So we have these MSA town, NBI, AOI, and Samburu. Okay, yeah, so actually we have something, the size of the data, let's look at this data. It's the raster specifically is, the total data is about 600 MB, 685 MB to be precise. That is for the raster. And for the vector, it's about 253. So this is a total of about 800 MB. So if you have probably your internet is not very fast, then it may take some time. But what you can do, you can begin with there is this file. There's one of the file that is small, and it is this NBI AOI TIFF. It's only 14 MB. So you can begin with this for Nairobi, NBI AOI TIFF. It's only 14 MB. So you can begin with this one. You download this, only this file as a start, then you can download the others. Samburu, you can download Samburu for this as the second file, which is on 72 MB. And then for the MSA town, you can download it later as the last because it is big, it has 500 MB. Yeah. So do we at least have the NBI? It is only 14 MB. Download the NBI, and inside the raster we have NBI TIFF. If you decide to download all the data, it's going to take some time. So you'd rather enter into the raster folder and download NBI, Nairobi AOI TIFF. It's only 14 MB. Do we at least have that file for the NBI? So do we at least have the NBI? You have it? Okay. So we are this place where we are adding the raster data source. So for the raster data source, I will add this one. I'll just call it NBI AOI. And I can leave the description as empty. Then I'll navigate to ensure that you copy that data in your raster folder in your computer. So after you have added your path, you will click on save. Then you can add the others if you have downloaded them. So you can click on add new store, GeoTIFF. I'll also add the Samburu one. Then I'll add the other one, the big file, which is for MSA. Then I'll browse to the data folder. Then I'll also add, for the others, you can also be adding your vector data sources. Add a new store. Directory of shapefiles, the one that you were using yesterday. So I'll call it GIS shapefiles. Then I'll point it to the location of the shapefiles, which is in GIS data vector. Then you click OK, and then we save. So you remember we saw something like this in our previous Windows. for the vectors. So where has our download reached? 1%, 50. Okay, so we have, I've also added the vector data sources. So what happens now, the next step will be to publish. If you look under the layers here, you notice that we have 0 layers. So if you also look under the layer preview, under this data, layer preview, you notice that it is empty. So we need to add the layers, and then we'll add a new layer. When you click layers, this is the page that it shows. When you click add new layer, then it asks you for a workspace. And you'll notice in my screen, I have how many? 5 workspaces. I have GS raster, GS shapefiles, MSA, NBI, AOI, and some bool. So we have, I will start with the rasters. Today I'll be giving the rasters priority. We have GS raster. So I'll just publish it. When I click on this publish, it shows the edit layer. So this is where the parameters for the layer are shown. The only thing that, okay, you can leave all these others as default. The only item that I'm interested in here is the coordinate system. So you'll notice that this coordinate system is already shown here. We are not the one, I'm not the one who has typed it here, or it appears as it is. And then you'll also notice that the bounding box has also been pre-calculated from these native SRS. The SRS stands for Spatial Reference System. So then it also has the latitude, longitude bounding box, which has also been pre-calculated. So this information has been obtained from the image itself using some library called GDAL, the Geospatial Data Abstraction Library, that GeoServer also uses to get the bounds of that image, the corner points, and also maps them to their location based on the spatial reference system. So this is some information that is stored in the image, okay? That raster file. So yeah, we also have the tile size. So today we'll be looking at this tiling and what it is. And we'll click on save. So you'll notice that it is identifying these layers enabled. It has a tick, and it also shows the native spatial reference system. So after I've published, if you have published at least one layer, what you can do, you can click on layer preview. So you remember in our previous session, we were clicking on layer preview, and when we clicked on layer preview, we noticed that when you click on open layers, it was not opening, it was not showing anything. So in this case, you'll notice that it has displayed an image on my screen. Okay, so this is some satellite image. Okay, And let me zoom out a little bit. You'll notice that when if you click anywhere on this image, let me scroll down, you'll notice that there's something that adds here. Red band, green band, and blue band and the level. So if I click somewhere else, the values changes inside the image. Do you notice that? Something happens here. And then you notice that there's also a scale. So whenever I zoom in or out, when I zoom out there, this value that is the denominator or that is after the colon, it increases as the image, we continue to zoom out. So if I continue to zoom in, this is what happens. Okay. Yeah, so that is what we have on that. And then let's do it for the other layers. If you have added other layers, so you can click on layers under data, you click on layers and then you add new layer. Then you choose, in this case, I'll choose MSA now, and then I'll publish. And then since it has already pre-calculated the bounding box and the SRS, then we'll click on save. And then it says that this already exists. Yeah, so I think I may have to edit one of the layers. So we already have this layer called MSA town. So let me try and add another layer, a different layer. NBI AOI. I publish it. It has already pre-calculated the coordinates and the bounding box, for the bounding box rather. So I'll click on save, and then I can go to my layer preview here under the data. And then I click on open layers. Yeah, so this is what we have. This is some data as well. Okay. Then let me close that. I'll also publish my third and final raster, which is Samburu, okay? Then I'll click on publish. And then as usual, it has also pre-calculated or pre-computed the coordinate, the bounding boxes, minimum X, minimum Y, and the latitude, longitude. Then we'll click on save, and then we'll navigate to layer preview. We have Samburu, which was not there before. Then I'll click on it. When I click on it, this is the image that it displays. You remember we saw this image somewhere in our earlier sessions. So let's see what happens when you click this image. There's something that changes. This one now has a gray index field, and you notice that it keeps on changing. So when I click on the purely white part, it's negative 9,999. If I click on some dark patch here, it is 0. When I click on some brighter patch, it changes 102, all that. So yeah, so that is it. We have been able to publish our raster layers. Next, we will let me publish the vectors. So I'll quickly publish the vectors. We did this yesterday. So for the vector, you'll notice that the bounding box is not shown. So I will compute it from the data. Let me also compute this from the native bounds. Click on save. Let me look at the layer preview to confirm that it appears. So these are the points that appear for the Africa. And you'll notice that when I click on any of the points, let me pan this map. You notice that when I click on any of these points, you notice that it keeps on displaying. You remember this information is like the attribute table that you are viewing in QGIS. So whenever you click at any of these, click on one point. There's a point here in Algeria called Tamanghasset. There is a place. We have we have all the information for that layer. We have the capital, city name Ouagadougou for Burkina Faso. So let me add the other layers. So you'll go to layers, add new layer, choose the workspace. So in my case, I've called it GS shapefiles. So I'll add the GHA countries, the Great Horn of Africa countries, and I believe this data you should be having it somewhere in because we used it for in our first most lessons. So I'll also publish the others under layers, add new layer, shapefiles. I'll add the Great Horn of Africa roads. I will compute from data. I'll do also the second compute here, and then I save. Add new layer, workspace. Kenya constituencies. I'll click on publish. Then I will compute from data, native bounds, and I click save. I'll add a new layer. It shows me the workspaces. My workspace is GS shapefiles, KE counties. Then I'll compute from data, compute from native bounds, and then I click save. Then I will add my final layer. Click on the workspace. Then the only layer that is not published here is KE towns. So I'll click on publish. I'll compute from data. Then I'll click on save. So after I've completed, I'll click on this layer preview. So let's preview one of our layers, which is, let me preview the GHA countries. So this is what we have. Okay. This is what we have in the GHA countries. So if you click, let me click on, I know this from my geography that this is Tanzania. So if I click with the mouse here, you notice that this is the information that it shows below here. Then if you click on Kenya, it shows the information. If you click on Burundi, and then Burundi. Okay, if you click on Uganda, South Sudan, have Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan. So this is a Great Horn of Africa. Then we'll check on roads. You remember the roads were very heavy. This is how they look like in our map. Okay, so these are the roads. If I click somewhere here, it keeps on displaying them. Displaying the attribute information. Okay, so I'll close this. Let me check on the KE constituencies. These are the constituencies of Kenya. Then we have counties, Kenya counties. These are the counties of Kenya. It's shown in this web map. Then we have KE towns. So let me click on these clustered towns here. You see that it has brought a list of towns because I've just clicked some on the map and they are clustered. That's why it's showing so many, many data, a lot of information. So see, this is what we have. So I'll close that and I'll open my MSA town. That one you have already checked it. We have checked the raster. So these are all the layers that I have. Yesterday I talked about this. We have these dots. All the layers that have these dots are point layers. The layers that have a box like this shaded in some color, I think it's blue or something inside, they represent a polygon. Then for the ones that have nodes and lines, they represent the shape, the line layer. So are we together up to that point? Some of us are still downloading. Have you been able to download the data? Yeah, so you need to have all your layers looking like this. So when you're downloading your rasters, maybe if you're still downloading, you can be publishing your vectors, the vector layers. Yeah, so I believe at this point we can be able to add our own layers even in future. You have some shape like somewhere, some geometry somewhere. You can be able to like to our workspace. Okay, so we've been able to add these our layers. So let's see. Now there's something I would want to demonstrate here. So if somebody is stuck somewhere, let us know so that we can be able to move ahead together. Yeah, so let me refer you back to the slides. So we've been able to install the JRE. We've been able to install our GeoServer. We've been able to configure some few items in the GeoServer. That includes creation of the workspaces and the like, and also pointing the GeoServer to our data folder. Now we will look at, we have also been able to add our raster data sources. And then we have been able to preview our raster via WMS. However, we have not tested that in our QGIS. So that is something that I may want us to test. Then, yeah, we've been able to add our raster data sources. This is our first file. I think it is MSA or something. TIFF, it's a GeoTIFF file. And it is about half a GB, 500 MB or thereabout. We have this Samburu, it's about slightly under 200 megabytes. This is a digital elevation model, DEM, and it is also in GeoTIFF. And this is some Nairobi AOI, I think it's named Nairobi AOI. It's also a high resolution satellite image. It is quite small, it's around 14 MB. And okay, there's one more data I think I had somewhere. This I downloaded it from Natural Earth. So you remember we looked at data sources in our previous, in our first most sessions when you were looking at raster. One of the data sources from which you can download free data from is Natural Earth. So you can look at that. So I think, I'm not sure, but I think I already have mine. So I think I can also publish it as an additional layer. And this, I think, will also help us, some of us who are maybe did not grasp on adding the raster sources. So there's something that we are going to look at, and this is called the GeoWeb. I don't know what this is. This cache or cache or what? So GeoWebCache. I'll refer to it as GeoWebCache. It's also known as the GWC. So this is a Java web application that is used to cache map tiles coming from a variety of sources. And some of these sources include the OGC web map service, okay? It implements various services interfaces such as WMSC, WMTS for tiling, TMS stands for Tiling Map Service, Google Map KML. You remember we talked about the KML, Keyhole Markup Language, and also something else called the Virtual Earth. So it can greatly enhance the throughput. The throughput is at runtime. It's the memory, or it's the the efficiency in which you are displaying your image or your WMS layer as compared to a clean WMS. Right now we are using a clean WMS. Okay. And one thing I will demonstrate this. You'll notice that when you zoom into your WMS layer, at times it may take time before it displays the pixelated, if it's an image that is the pixelated, before the pixels readjust themselves to a fine-grained image. It may take some seconds. So if you have the larger the image, you notice that we are not using an image that is beyond 1 GB because of, you may encounter challenges in terms of, zooming in, panning here and there, okay? So the GeoWebCache is important because it kind of enhances the efficiency of the pure WMS from at least 10 times to about 100 times. So imagine having, let me give you a scenario. You've worked with Google Earth or the Google Maps satellite imagery. So you can imagine Google satellite imagery covers, it's an image, kind of a tile that covers the whole of the world, isn't it? So you can imagine that you have been given such a TIFF, okay? One of the layers that we have here is about half a GB, and it's a very small area in the map of the world. So you can imagine if you have all the GeoTIFFs, high resolution images that have been clipped to the area of Kenya. You could just try to imagine that. And it is a high resolution satellite image. So I don't know how many boxes we would need, like the ones we have here for MSA TIFF. But we can try and give it something like a hypothetical figure. So that area is very small. Okay, I've already shown you the MSA TIFF. It looks like that, and it occupies a very minute area in I believe in the coastal part of Kenya. Yeah, so my image here is not drawn to scale, so do not shoot me down. Okay, so this is what we have. So it only occupies this small area. So you can imagine somewhere there, the coast. So you can imagine how many tiles or how many boxes like this you need to cover the whole of this country. Fine, let's give it, and of course, don't forget that the size is approximately this. So let's do some mathematics. So we have, let's multiply it by how many times? How many boxes can fill? Let's say 100. Let's say around 10,000. So let's multiply this value. 503 for the MSA TIFF with 10,000. So I'll just take all the zeros. There are both 6 zeros. And then I'll multiply the 5 with the 1. So we have 5 million megabytes. So how many megabytes make a gigabyte? About 1,000. So if we remove these, we have about 5,000 terabytes. These are megabytes. So we have about 5,000 terabytes. So you can imagine having 5,000 terabytes of data that you want to display on your GeoServer in your machine. Okay. So how will you do that? First of all, you need infrastructure. You can't put it in some machine with 4 GB and expect it to run. Fine, you may have even a server somewhere, maybe in your organization. the IT guys put, or whoever the server administrator puts that data somewhere in a file, in the file system of the server, and reads it in GeoServer. So there are some operations that when you may require, like to do some statistics on that image, you may find that they may be difficult because we are only talking about the size here. So to process, there are certain processes, and I think I had mentioned this in our first sessions. Certain processes like warping an image that require the actual memory size of that image. So if you're using 500 MB, there are certain processes that you can do to those images, to that image for MSA.TIFF that requires 500 MB of your RAM, the random access memory. So you can imagine if you have this kind of numbers of data, if you have 5,000 terabytes of data that you need to process. So that's why we have this concept of the GeoWebCache, and it comes with GeoServer. And the good thing is that it's open source. So if you install your GeoServer, depending on your application, you can use it. It can come quite in handy. So how can we configure the GeoWebCache? So this is how we do it. Of course, we have already logged into our GeoServer user interfaces. Then we have been, the next step we are going to do is that we are going to create a grid set. And then we are going to name that grid set to whatever name. Then we are going to set the minimum and the maximum extent of the coordinate reference system. And then we will add what you call zoom levels. So what are zoom levels? I'm going to explain that practically, but in a nutshell is when you zoom into your image, I'll use the Google Maps or the Google Earth as an example that probably all of us, most of us, have familiarity with. When you zoom into your, you continue zooming into your image, you zoom up to a point where it can no longer zoom again, okay? So that zoom level is the lowest zoom level, okay, which is 0. So as you continue also zooming out, then there's also a maximum. I think it's around, I'm not sure, but I think GeoServer supports up to 23 or 20 or something, okay? So that is, it shows, it recalculates every time you zoom into your map, if it's maybe in GeoServer, your layer, it recalculates the zoom level so that you can be able to see those features, in the best way possible, okay? So the underlying, those calculations, it's based on of course, your CPU and memory, okay? And your computer's CPU and memory. But now what the GeoWebCache does is that it enhances this, okay? So we are going to create the minimum and maximum extent for zoom levels, and then we are going to save that grid set. Yeah, so these are just screenshots. So we are going to go into grid sets. I think in your GeoServer on the left panel is somewhere it's titled grid set. You'll see a list of grid sets that look like this. So we can create a new grid set. However, something to note is that I think every time you upload a new data, most of these data, because you have specified a coordinate system, it usually automatically adds it as a grid set, okay? So it's not necessarily that you need to create a new grid set. You can use the existing grid sets that GeoServer has. Then after that, you're going to go into tile layers. There's also a link called titled tile layers in the left panel. And then when you do the tile layers, it's going to open this GeoWebCache. And this is where now we are going to do our thing, and we are going to look at it. Yeah, then there's something that I want you to be keen on here. Now, after I've started the process of, there's what you call seeding, when you are doing you're processing those zoom levels. I want you to take keen on this. There's a third last column that shows, if I look at the first link here, it says 345 days, 5 hours, time remaining. So this ideally is the time remaining to process these tiles, which are about 96 tiles. Then we have 112 tiles for zoom level. I think this is the zoom level 2. Then it will take 266 days. So when you're doing this procedure, you know, it's like it is creating anything. If you hear, when you're anywhere you go and you hear something called the cache in your, when you're talking about websites and everything. Let me use a website as an example. When you open some website, there's some website that when you open it, you'll notice that it will take time to display the information for the first time. But if you probably, let's say you even close the tab and then you open it again, you notice that it will open, for the second time, it will open very fast. So what it has done, actually what your browser has done, even the browser itself, it usually stores these images somewhere temporarily in a cache, okay? So that's what this is also doing. But now to do this, it requires some memory, some processing, okay? So depending on your image, the larger the image, the larger the TIFF or whatever you are calculating, the larger the layer, even the vectors, you can even do this for vector layers. The larger the file, the more the tiles that it has, then the more the time it will take to calculate, okay? So this is a test that I did on the image that we were using yesterday. So that test, this is what it was showing me. And today, for example, we are going through this. So you can imagine, we cannot wait for 345 days so that we can present the pre-calculated image for us. Neither does probably, let's say if it's your organization. Your organization does not have 345 plus 266 plus 310 days. These are equivalent to a year or years, okay? So let me use another analogy that is probably used in it's usually a bit humorous. If you've been using Windows, you remember the Windows 95, the Windows, those earlier Windows versions. Probably if you had a very small RAM, 512 MB, for example, and you're trying to copy this large file, there's somewhere where it will tell you 1,000 days left. You get the ETA, estimated time of arrival, or the time that it will take to copy the whole file. I think even in our current Windows, if you try and copy a folder that contains, let's say, only 1 GB. 1 GB is not big for most of our computers, but it has so many files. Let's say it has 1 billion files. All these small files that compute or total to about 1 GB, which is not very big. You notice that it may take a lot of time copying, okay? So the humor here is, you can imagine something that is telling you, you have a presentation that you are making tomorrow, and then you are shifting that one file to some folder, maybe from your external hard disk to your PC. And then it's telling you something like these 345 days, you'd be in hot soup, you get? So this is now where we bring in the option of, you need to invest in your infrastructure. If you are the organization, if you are the IT, if you are the, the geospatial expert in the organization, then you may need to advise having an infrastructure, a server that has a good capacity of RAM, let's say around 64 GB of RAM, 128 GB of RAM, something like that. And of course, the hard disk. It should be at least a solid state hard disk. So anyway, this all falls in this realm of why we have this time remaining here telling me 295 days, 345 days, because what GeoWebCache has done, it has gone to it has looked at the CPU, the CPU or the processor of your computer, or my computer in this case, the computer that you're using to test, and it also goes and checks the RAM or the random access memory, and then it checks, when it does those calculations, then it sees, for us to do all this, we will take this amount of time to process this amount of data, okay? So another thing that we will also look at is, yesterday we had talked about optimizing. Earlier today, I had told you to look at your, memory somewhere in your GeoServer. About, I think it's about or not about, I think something there. It shows the memory that it uses. So luckily the GeoServer or even Java, the Java application normally takes about a quarter of your RAM, okay? So if your RAM is 1 GB, it will use 256, I think, 56 MB. And the list goes on and on. If it is 2 GB, which is 2048, it will use a quarter of it, which is 512 MB. So the bigger the RAM, the bigger the more at least the more the memory that your server will use. Okay. So we'll look at that. So we'll first edit some file somewhere inside the bin folder, and then this configures the RAM usage by GeoServer, and then you're going to restart the GeoServer and see if the changes will occur. So you remember yesterday, even today, for those people who have run their GeoServer manually, you notice that you have a startup file. Okay. So this startup file contains a path, and towards the end of it, it has this kind of a line. So there are some parameters that we are going to add into that line, okay? And then we see if our GeoServer kind of displays. So let's go back to our GeoServer. And what we are going to do is first, let me show you I want to do something here. Let me add these, put these on the side, and then let me check my task manager. Okay, so this is my CPU usage. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so this is my memory. Okay, I would like to show you this. What is it called? Practically. So let me I've opened my GeoServer on my right, and I have my these on the left here. So let me close this GeoServer, and actually let me close it. So you notice that my memory has reduced. So my memory currently here, we have 6% of CPU and 26% of memory, okay? So let's see what happens when I run my GeoServer. So I'm going to go to start and check for GeoServer. Start GeoServer, this is what I want. So just note, let's look at our CPU. The CPU is currently around 26%. So let me just start the GeoServer and see what happens. So I'm starting my GeoServer and look at what will be happening here. You'll notice that first of all, the CPU has shot up to around 80%. And then the memory is still somewhere there, hanging in there. Yeah, so the CPU has kind of relaxed a bit. So let me open the browser and access my layer, localhost GeoServer. You notice that even the CPU, once I've opened of course the browser is also consuming some memory, but let's see what happens. Now I want to preview my layer. Let's show if I can be able to preview here. So I'll begin with the raster layers, because the raster layers are the ones which are notorious on this. So we have this MSA town. Let me just open it. So I've opened it. You'll notice that the CPU has increased when displaying, and when I try to do the zooming in, and moving here and there in the image, there's something else that it is consuming here, which is the GPU. So if I start clicking on things around here, you notice that the CPU also keeps on changing. Okay. And I'm just doing clicks. You notice that? Yeah, so okay, let me test it with another image. This one for Samburu. Let's try and zoom in. You notice that the CPU has increased, then it has stabilized. Continue zooming out, and then let me try and zoom in again. Yeah, so you notice that there's a way that the consumption of the CPU and the memory is kind of up and down, especially when I'm doing some calculations. That is one. So allow me also to open the QGIS, okay? And at this point, this is where I'm going to add. Yesterday we also did the same, but let's try and do it. And I'm not going to close this CPU. This is my task manager, okay? So I've opened the QGIS, and here it is. So I'm also going to add it here on the side. And I'm going to add let me add begin with the WMS. I'll create a new connection. So this is a repetition of what we did yesterday. So I want to visualize these layers in the QGIS so that we see the memory consumption and the CPU. So I'll just call it GS data. And for the URL is HTTP localhost port 8080 or GeoServer. Then I will add it as WMS, link and a question mark. Let's see if it works. Yeah, and indeed it works. It has shown me the GeoServer web map service. So let me actually open all of this in QGIS. So you see that it is actually taking some time even to display the first layer. Okay, so it has displayed 2 layers. Let me continue adding my layers. I continue adding my layers. I'll continue adding all. My plan is to add all the layers. Okay, so this is what we have. Yeah, so you'll notice that the CPU here has shot to, okay, it has reduced drastically, but anytime I try to do something like this, you notice that it really increases. Even in some machines, depending on your CPU size, it may reach up to 100 and it will be blinking red, okay? So this is some of the things that I wanted us to take note of. Okay. So this is what we have. So let me close the CPU window, and then I will also close my QGIS. Just wanted to show you that. And let me go back to my GeoServer. And while we are here, we are going to look at click on admin. It has actually logged me out. So let me just run GeoServer. Yeah, so this is what we have. So we are going to go into, first of all, we are going to look at the tiling or the GeoWebCache. And then as a last step, we are going to, second last, we are going to optimize the memory. And then finally, we are going to look at the WMS and WFS operations. If you remember, it is part of what we have on our outline for today. So the first thing is that we are going to click on grid sets and a tile. So if you have your GeoServer here, just scroll down and you'll continue. Actually, before you do that, hold on. navigate to the top part and about and status, the server status. This is what I wanted us to check. So when you click on your server status, it shows you first of all, it shows you the number of connections. So mine has one connection because I'm the only one who is connected to it, okay? So we have the memory usage. So if you notice that your memory here is high, you can come here and free some memory. You notice that my memory has reduced from 1 GB to 157 MB. So you can continue doing that. It has reduced to 81 MB. So let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it cannot. It seems like it cannot reduce below that for the memory usage, below that. Then we have something else here. We have the JAI memory usage. So this is used for, JAI stands for Java Advanced Imaging. It is used for raster displays, and imaging and raster operations. So you notice that my maximum memory here is 3.53 GB. So I cannot be able to use, this is roughly half of my memory usage. So according to what I've told you guys, can you tell me how much my computer has as the total RAM based on what we have discussed? What is the total memory of my PC having this? Yeah? 16 GB. Nope. Remember, I've not configured my RAM. I've just we just installed the GeoServer and run it. So how much of the memory does GeoServer use by default? So what is the total? This is the quarter. It's the quarter of the total computer's RAM. So it's about 28 or thereabout, okay? Yeah. So that is so this one already tells you, you may go somewhere or you may install your GeoServer and you look at this memory usage and you're wondering, this is not, you have not configured it and you're going to do that in our steps later. So if yours has 1, then it means you have roughly around 4 GB, okay? Okay. So anyway, let's see what we have here. No. Let me open this PC. Click on properties. Open the yeah, so if you look at there's some information here. You see? So this is the total memory, okay? Or it's about that 28, okay? So if you want to check it or confirm it, you can just click on start and then you type on system info. And then you check your RAM, okay? So it displays some window here. So this is the one. Under system summary, we have installed physical memory. So in my case, this is 32 GB, okay? So yours could be something else. So it would be also good to check before you probably deploy or install your GeoServer, okay? So let's go to our, so there are many other items here. we have configuration, we have resource cache and all that. So let's go to the grid sets. And under the grid sets, we have all these grid sets. Okay, we have EPSG 4326 that we have been using. We have CRS, we have all these things. There are quite many. And you can see it already tells us that there are 141 grid sets. So these grid sets are grid sets for, I believe they are for all EPSGs, or if not all, at least most of the EPSGs that have been added. So let's just scroll up. So this is the name of the grid set in the first title. The second title is the coordinate reference system. You remember there is a website that I told you if you want to check your CRS, yeah, epsg.io. So you can just copy and paste one of these codes here, EPSG, and check where it belongs to. Then you have the tile dimensions. So the tile dimensions, these are described in pixels. So an image, the resolution of an image is described in pixels. And in this case, WMS, you remember the output is an image, PNG, JPEG, and all that. So when you go to purchase, let me give you I repeat something that we had discussed in the first weeks. When you go to purchase a screen, a TV, these current smart TVs, the size of the screen is described in what? You've heard people say 1080 by 720, even the smartphones nowadays. You've heard people talk of 4K screens, okay? So these 512 times 512, 56 times 256, it is a pixel, okay? It is the pixel size. So if you talk about something like 1080p, that is 10,080 pixels lengthwise, and maybe 720 pixels height, okay? So this is 512, that is the box of the pixel in the screen. So the units that you use to describe the size on the screen, it is in the pixels. So these pixels are, that's why, and they're also square, that's why you see that they are equal, they are tiles. These are what you call tiles. Then we have zoom levels. So I believe GeoServer supports up to this zoom level 24. However, when you are calculating you're creating your tiles, I think most of the tiles, you may end up losing meaning. I mean, what I mean is that beyond tile 15, zoom level 15, you may not get any meaningful output, okay? There are very minimal usages for that. So nevertheless, we have up to 24 in GeoServer, and you notice these are the zoom levels. So ideally let me describe the first row. It states that this is a grid set name. This is the EPSG that it supports. This is the tile dimensions on the screen. These are the zoom levels that are supported, and we also have the disk usage. So if it creates all these tiles, then it must save these tiles somewhere, okay? It must cache them somewhere in the computer. So that's why we have this disk memory. So let's create a new grid set in this case. And this new grid set, we will give it a name, okay? So let me repeat, if you have your GeoServer like this, you're in the home folder, just navigate on the, scroll on the left horizontal list of menus, scroll until you reach somewhere where it's titled tile caching. And then you click on grid sets. Then you'll create a new grid set. So this grid set, let's just call it MSA. For the description, you can just call it Mombasa. And then for the coordinate system, let me help you on this one. Let me just click find. And then on this one, it should be, I believe 37 something. Let me see, arc, space 1960. 37 south, yes. So let me just search for that. The A is capital, I believe. Just note, it is ARC 1960, but WGS84, okay? No, that's something you should be also careful about. So anyway, since I don't know this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this and I'm going to go back to my layer. Okay, just discard what you have typed in there, like the MSA. Click on the layers, and then you'll go to MSA town. You notice that it shows the APSG on the last row. So on the left horizontal menu list, just go to data, and then under data you click on layers. And then in the layers, you note the layer for MSA. Let me highlight it on the screen. This MSA, at the end you have EPSG 32737. So this is what I want you to add. So I'll just copy it, right click and copy. Then you go back to your, remember the grid sets? Here it is, this grid set. So we'll create a new grid set, we'll just call it MSA. And for the description, we'll just call it Mombasa. I can even call it Mombasa tiles. Then for the coordinate system, actually you click find to be sure. And then you can just paste. And then after you paste, you click enter, or you click on this search. There's a search, something here for searching. So it shows nothing. So basically what you need to do, you need to remove the EPSG and colon. You leave the code, the SRID. That's what you normally call the SRID, Spatial Reference ID. So you are going to leave it as that. Let's see what happens when you search. So you see that in my case, you leave this as it is. This is the Spatial Reference ID. So it's going to show us it is WGS84, UTM zone 37 south, okay? So that's what you're going to use. So click on this, the code is like a link. So click on it. You notice when I place my cursor on the 32, that's what it shows. So I'll click that. And then now it appears here with the whole, the EPSG and the code. So what we are going to do, we can compute from maximum extent of the coordinate system. So when you click on this, it displays some minimum X and minimum Ys. And then you can edit the tile with pixels. If you want them to be 256 by 256, that is a default that is given. So we leave it as it is, and then we can save. Or before we save, hold on, we need to add a zoom level. Remember we talked about the zoom level? So click on add zoom level. So when you click on add zoom level, you notice that it has added one tile, 1 times 13 then, and it is showing the pixel size and the scale. So you notice the scale is very big. It's 1 into 9 million, 9.5 million, okay? Then you can continue on adding the zoom level. You can continue on clicking the add zoom level. So it has now added zoom level 1. So notice that the zoom level starts from 0, okay? So the second zoom level, it is 2 times 26, okay, tiles. So you can continue adding, but I will advise you to add until not go beyond, for now, actually, let's say, if you want to remove a zoom level, you click on this right, there are these red buttons on the right. So I would want us first to deal with 3 zoom levels, okay? This is because I do not want us to do 365. We do not have 365 days of computing our tiles, our 24 tiles, okay? We only have a few hours or a few minutes. So let's click on save. After you have this 0, 1, 2, 3, or probably up to 4, do not go beyond that. Click on save. So when you click on save, you know the grid set, we do not see our grid set here. So I already know the name that I added for my grid set. So I'll just type it here. I think it's MSA. And here it is. So it shows my grid set. The name is MSA. The coordinate system is that. Tile dimensions are this. And it has 4 zoom levels. And the disk usage so far is 0.0 bytes. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come here and click on the no, the tile layers. So you click on tile layers. So this is what it will open for us. It will open for us the tile layer. Then when it opens the tile layer, the good thing with GeoServer is, if you look at this, you have some information here. It says manage the cached layers published in the integrated GeoWebCache. So now our next step will be to create those tiles that we have computed. So remember, we are working on MSA. MSA, for my case, is this MSA town. I don't know if I have any other MSA. So do not use it to calculate for another one, okay? So let's click on MSA town. When you click, this is what, okay, it takes us back to the edit layer. However, I do not want that. Let me go back. So what I will do, you can also preview it in different coordinate systems, but we are not interested in that. You'll also notice one thing. Inside here, we have not applicable, disk quota is not applicable, disk use is not applicable, N/A, even for this MSA town. So what you're going to do, we are going to click on, there is a button here written seed or truncate, okay? Seed/truncate. So just click on it and it displays this page. You remember we saw this page in our screenshot somewhere. So this page is what you use to create the tiles, okay? So this is a GeoWebCache page. And there's one thing I've already noticed. I think I'm in the wrong place. Why? If you look at my screen. The information that is in this screen, why am I in the wrong place? The hint is on the screen. Myself, I'm in the wrong place. Why? Help me out. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just highlight this. Look, which layer am I on? I'm on Africa cities. If you look at the URL, I'm also on Africa cities. This is not the layer that we're working on. I want us to begin with that MSA, the MSA layer. So I'll just close this. This is actually a new tab, so I'll just close it. And I'll ensure that I'm clicking the seed truncate for this layer. So you need to be keen on this. So yeah, so right now I'm in the workspace for the layer MSA town, okay? So what I will do now, I will scroll down. So there's some information here. List these layers task, kill tasks for these, list of currently executing tasks, none so far. Then we have the refresh list, which we may be using. Then there's also some notes, some pointers here. This minimalistic interface does not check for correctness. Seeding past zoom level 20 is not recommended. You remember what I've told you? So actually it's not 15, but GeoServer itself recommends, up to 20. So if you go beyond 20, then you are somewhere else. And allow me to branch a little bit. So let me open, you remember there's a website that we used called geojson.io. I've typed it wrongly, geojson.io. So this is what we have, yeah? So the more you continue entering inside, the more the zoom level, okay? So this is zoom level 0, okay? So if I continue zooming out, then the zoom level increases. So I think the view, yeah, like now, I'm not sure what this is. I think this is zoom level, probably 24 or something. So really, genuinely, you cannot do anything with this, okay? You can't, or can you? Maybe besides trying to trace the continents. Imagine you are digitizing a road in Turkana from this. You know, it really doesn't. Even if you put it on as a satellite image, it does not. Okay, we actually switch it to satellite. Yeah, what can you do with this? This zoom level is so that's what GeoSurvey, the GeoSurvey is trying to tell us here in this seed form. So seeding past zoom level 20 is usually not recommended. Truncating KML will also truncate all the KMZ. So normally what it does, it creates a KML file or a keyhole markup language file that works with Google Earth. And KMZ is a zipped KML. It contains many KML files zipped together. So then it also tells you, please check the logs for the container to look for error messages and progress indicators. Then here are the maximum bounds. If you do not specify, these bounds will be used, okay? So we have already, I think these are predefined coordinate systems. Remember we had WGS 84 somewhere after the Act 1960. This is what it represents. This one, I think, I'm not sure about these. Let's actually check these 900, 913, because you'll more often than not find it in GeoServer, okay? It will already be there. So let me check it in epsg.io. Remember this website? It can really help you a lot. So this is what you call the Google Maps Global Marketer, or it's called the Global Marketer. So normally the things like OpenStreetMap, Google Maps, and all the web maps, they normally use this, okay, as a coordinate system. That's why we are seeing it in GeoServer. It is on the web. It is the web, okay? It's a web map that we're working with Web GIS. Yeah, so that's what we have. And it is also saying that it is used in open source projects, like the one that we are working on. Okay, so create a new task. So we have a number of tasks to use. So you can create up to 128 tasks. However, you should be very careful about these because I think these tasks are attached to the CPU threads or the CPU cores or the CPU memory, okay? Usages. So you may be, for now, I'll just, maybe let me set it as how many? 4 tasks. And then I'll leave this as default. The grid set, I'll also leave it as it is for now. However, remember that we created a new grid set. So we are going to revisit that. So let's first of all use the grid set for the global coordinate system. So the zoom start is 0, stop at 15, but we don't want this. Let's reduce it to around 3 or 4. Let's put it at 4. Then we leave the styles as raster. The bounding box, we won't type it because it will use the bounding box for the image. Then set the style failure retries. So when a tile generation encounters an error, so what it's telling us is it is set to -1 or -1 to disable the retries and stop seed thread on the first failure. So if it encounters a failure, it stops. Okay, for some reason, it stops. Then there's a pause. How many milliseconds? You know, milliseconds are a very small unit of time. Does it take to begin the tiles? And total failure before aborting. So you need to encounter 1,000 errors for it to abort the seeding process completely, okay? So I will invite you, if you have already added those values up there, click on submit button. Let's see what happens. So I've clicked on submit, and you'll notice that in my case, it's showing estimating. And then it's saying tiles completed -1. So that means it's not yet shown. So if you want to see the procedure, the progress here, this window is static. So you need to click on refresh to see what is going on. So if you click on refresh list, yeah, so it seems like, I'm not sure, I think it has already created the grid set, the tile. Has yours also refreshed back to this window? So what it means is that it has already run that task and it was very fast, okay? So let's do another test. Let's set our zoom stop to around 8. I want us to go slowly, you know, slowly by slowly. It's 15, the zoom stop. Set it to 8 and leave as the other elements as options as they are. Then you refresh. And then you can click on refresh list. So it automatically refreshes to back to the page. This is why is it doing this? This is because remember that GeoServer already has a grid set for EPSG 4326 that has come with it. However, we need to work on our layer. We need to set for the grid set that we have created. Okay. So what we are going to do, we cannot see our grid set here. You know, cannot see it here. So what we are going to do, we are going to go back to we can close this window and go back to our GeoServer. And we can click on the layer, the MSA town layer. It is a link. Just click on it. And then inside tile, we have this tab for tile cache. You can scroll downwards and see what we have. So we only have grid sets for EPSG 4326 and these are the one, the Google Marketer. Okay. Do you see that? So every layer that you have added in GeoServer, and you can test self-check, you'll notice that it already has these 2 grid sets. So we are creating a new grid set, okay? So we need to add a new grid set here using the add grid subset. So we'll choose one here from this. I don't know where MSA is. I think it's the last option. Yeah, here it is. So I hope you can get it. Let me repeat. So we are back into, if somebody is lost somewhere, this is what we are doing. We want to create a tile for MSA, that image for MSA for Mombasa, okay? So this is what we are going to do. We have our GeoServer here. So you're going to navigate, you scroll down until we have this tile caching. I assume that you have already created the grid set. So what you're going to do is that you're going to click on tile layers. So when you click on tile layers, it displays all the layers that can be tiled, okay? And this includes the raster and the vectors. So what you're going to do, you're going to click on MSA town, okay? This is mine here. This is how it appears on my screen. So when I click on this, it automatically opens the tile caching tab, okay? So I will scroll down until where I find add grid subset. It is actually the last option, just on top of these buttons for save and apply. So there's something that has highlighted choose one. So click on it, it is a drop down. And the drop down, our layer, the grid set that we had added is MSA. It is actually the last option. Like in my screen is the last option. So I'll click on it. And then you see some button there, a green button that has a plus. So you'll click on it. And then I don't know why it brings this second part here again. So let me just click on the MSA. Or I think it is asking us which we are building against. So let's click the EPSG 4326, okay? Okay. And then after we have done that, you click on save. Okay, and then it has returned us back to our layer. So let's just click on it again. Then we scroll down. So you'll notice that we have this MSA that is dynamic. Okay. Now what I want us to do, I want us to look at the published zoom levels. And then, okay, for all these, we leave them as minimum and maximum. One thing you'll notice is that our maximum and minimum, they do not go beyond 3. Why do you think this is the case? They do not go beyond 3, but if you click on these others, they go up to 30 actually, up to 30. Why? But mine here, in my case, they do not go beyond 3. Exactly. That's yes. So yeah, thank you. When we are creating our grid set, we had only set it to 3, 0 up to 3, okay? And those are 4 tiles if you include 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are 4 tiles. So let's just work with that as it is, okay? And then we'll see how it will behave, and then we can continue increasing. Now what we'll do is that we will edit our grid set, but not now. Now we are going to go back. After saving, we go to our MSA town, and then we click on seed/truncate, okay? So when you click, it returns us to this page for the GeoWebCache, and we'll scroll down, and inside here, you notice that inside the grid set, we have an additional grid set, which is MSA, okay? So we'll click on that grid set, and then for the zoom levels, let's just set it as it was, stop at 3 and start at 0. Then we click on submit. So it says below you can find a list of executing tasks. So let's refresh our list. So it seems that it has been able to generate those zoom levels fast. That's why it is, when we refresh, it is bringing us to this window. Okay. So it seems that is an easy task. So this is what we are going to do. Could you go to the grid set menu? You can close this, go to the grid set menu. And I want us to increase our grid sets up to, remember we are talking of the MSA grid set. So if you cannot see it here, like myself, you can just click up here and search MSA, and you click enter. So the grid set has 4 zoom levels. So you can click on it, and then let's increase the zoom levels. You continue clicking and increase them up to around 10, from 0 up to 10. Then you click save. So you notice that it has 11 zoom levels, okay? Now let's go back to our tile layers, and then under MSA, next to MSA town, you click on seed/truncate, and then you click your grid set. And for the zoom stop, let's put it at 10 as we had set. And then we click on submit. Let's refresh our lists. Yeah, so it's saying the tasks are already finished. Okay, so it seems that is an easy task for it. Okay, so let's go back to our image layer preview, okay? And let's see how it appears. So in our layer preview, we have Kenya MSA town. So do you notice there's a way that it is displaying the pixels every time I zoom in, okay? Let me just reload this page. So it would be, if you have something to measure the CPU and the RAM usage whenever you zoom in, it would be, if you put it on a numeric or on some kind of a counter, it's going to show that it is picking up fast, okay? So you can also test the same in your QG using your QGIS. Yeah, so I will also invite you to try and, while using, let's just use, for another layer, you can seed/truncate any other layer, but now use what are they called? The zoom levels, all the zoom levels, okay? Up to around 20 for a different layer. And I would want you to use what is it called? I would want you to use a raster to begin with. So in this case, I'm going to work on NBI, Nairobi. So I'm going to go to tile layers. Since I'm not going to use a new grid set, I'm going to use grid set for 4326. So when I go to Nairobi AOI, I'm going to click on seed/truncate, and I'm going to increase the zoom levels to about 20. I'm going to leave the rest all the items as default. It has started. It is saying the estimated tiles are around 5922. So I've refreshed the list. It is saying time remaining 1 minute. Let me do a second refresh. It is still saying 1 minute. So you notice a task like this is taking some time, okay? And it is from level 0 to 15. Yeah, luckily it is only 1 minute. So let's hope it does not increase. In some cases, it will start with 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 day, depending on the number of items that you have added. So if you notice that your task we may take a long time and you want to cut it short, although in my case I won't because it's only 1 minute, you can click on kill task. So it stops doing that. And you'll notice from my tiles is that it has already processed half. Out of 5,922 tiles, estimated tiles, it has already computed or processed 2,800. It's quite fast. It has already computed 3,200 out of the 5,922. So when you process your layers with GWC or the GeoWebCache, then those layers tend to appear, quickly. So that is the same concept that some services like Google Earth or the Google Maps use. Whenever you zoom into your smartphone or your Google Maps in your browser, you see that it loads quite fast. Of course, if you have, that also is dependent on your internet. But in this case, since we are using it in our computer, that's a different case. But your Google Maps or whatever, it may hang, or OpenStreetMap, because of the slowness of your internet, or what you call the internet latency. But ideally what it does when you zoom in, when you pinch into your map, it reloads it quickly, okay? So it is using it's what you're calling it's using some form of a cache, whatever it is, yeah? So let's see whether it has completed. Yeah, it has completed. And I was working on the layer of NBI AOI. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to navigate back to our GeoServer main page, and I'm going to look at layer preview. I'll click on Nairobi AOI. Then I can try and zoom in. I zoom in. So as long as it has processed these tiles, then you will not have issues, zooming in and out, okay? And maybe digitizing. Let's say if you're using something like QGIS and something like that. So let me also try and open these NBI in QGIS and see how it's going to appear. Whether it will take, you remember when we were opening them earlier, QGIS was taking some seconds, so some seconds before it displays it. So let's see what you can do. Let's add the NBI, Nairobi AOI, NBI AOI. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. So you notice even in QGIS, it does not take time to, when I zoom in and out, you notice that the outer layers especially when I zoom out, they disappear for some seconds. So the faster the more the grid sets that you have generated, or rather the more the tiles and the zoom levels, the lesser, that white part, you may even not notice it. If it is on a full, you notice when I zoom out, there's a white part that disappears and comes back. So it is dependent on that GeoWebCache, okay? Yeah, so we can try and, maybe as you are take home, you can try and compute the GWC for those other layers, okay? So it will really help us. But before then, let me try something. I don't want us to leave seeing, being in doubt of something. So let me try and take the layer for like the Kenya counties and try and do the seeding. And then I'll add them to a maximum of 30. Of course, the style is polygon, and then I'll just click submit. Okay, that was fast. I'm trying to create a scenario where we may have so many tiles being generated. Yeah, so this one has how many? 1 million. It has 962 billion tiles. Let me see when I refresh. Do you notice? I don't know why it's showing negative here. But at some point it was showing some, I don't know, 1,000. Yeah, you see, this is what I was telling you. 1,386 days and 12 hours. Yeah. You see that? So, when you are computing these things, the number of tiles, if there are so many, then it may take an eternity to process. How many years are these? If you divide with approximately 300, it's like 136 divided by 3. What is that? Or 137 divided by 3. Yeah, so you can imagine what those are quite a number of years. Could be 30 years, I'm not sure, something like that. Actually, they are more than 30. They're about 40 years. Yeah, 38 years. Yeah, so this one will take 38 years to process. Okay. But nevertheless, we can solve that. So let me just kill this task. Okay, so I can go back to my layer. Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how I want to customize the memory, okay? But this one is, I would recommend that, maybe you will refer to this, this session in future. You need to be careful about that because we do not want to edit wrong things in the file. So we are going to configure our memory for GeoServer and let's see whether it will work. So, yeah, let me close this browser. Let me move it away from our screen. And I want to so are we, before we proceed, are we together on the GeoWebCache? Yeah? Or somebody is lost somewhere? Okay, so I presume that we are together on that. Okay, so there's something I would want to show you before we proceed. On the tile caching and all that. Yeah, so there was some presentation that was made sometime in 2015 somewhere, and it contained these sort of an information, okay? So if you look at these GeoServer by then, maybe right now it has changed. We have the seeding. Some guy was seeding the Colorado. I'm assuming the Colorado is data. Assuming 8 cores of the CPU, one layer, 0.1 seconds for every 756 times 76 meta tile. And each tile is the size of 15 kilobytes. Then these are the kind of statistics that they came with. So if you have a zoom level 13 and you have the tiles, 58,000 tiles, the size is 1 MB. The time it takes to seed is 0, time in days is 0. So let's look at the maximum number here, which is 20. 20 consists of 950 million tiles. The size in MB is 14.5 MBs. So it will, the time in hours that it will take is 367 and 15 days. Okay. So maybe GeoServer has been improved, or of course with improving of the Java versions and all those things, the optimization has improved, but you need to keep this in mind, okay, when you are doing this tile caching, because it is dependent, actually highly dependent on your CPU or your processor. It has a number of cores that deal with this, okay? Yeah, so this is just something I wanted us to maybe take note of. Then when you're creating your tiles, remember that they will be saved somewhere in your computer. So there's what you call the disk quota. In your menu, you're going to see, but we're not going to look at that. You can set up your disk quota as you want. Okay, so if you want it to be 1 GB, then you can set it in your disk quota. If you look at the disk quota menu, yeah, so you can set a disk quota in alignment to preparing your tiles. Okay, yeah, that's just something to note. And trying to look at the file that we are editing. So I'll take you through how to factor our GeoServer. So the first thing I will do, my GeoServer is running, okay? So I will click on this start, and then I'll look for GeoServer. So I want to stop GeoServer. The best way to stop GeoServer, we normally call it a graceful shutdown or a graceful exit. Okay, that's normally the term that is used. Like your computer, you know, it's advisable to shut down your computer. You click start, look for that shutdown and shut down, okay? Rather than removing your battery, you get, that is ungraceful. So even with a system like this and then many other systems that probably you use, it's always good to do a graceful shutdown. Otherwise, you know, you may cut some processes halfway and all that. Let's say maybe you are seeding your layer and then you just closed GeoServer. So it may probably land you into challenges, maybe if you are doing some tasks, okay? So you'll click on stop GeoServer. We have this stop GeoServer. So it will do what you call a graceful shutdown of GeoServer, okay? And it should not take a lot of minutes. So let me just stop it first. Then you notice that even this screen will start showing some things here. So it will tell me press any key to continue. So there will be two windows whenever you shut down GeoServer. So this is for start. It is telling me press any key to continue. So if I press any key, it disappears my keyboard. So this one also tells me shutting down. It has already shut down. So it tells me to press any key to continue. So I've done a graceful shutdown of my GeoServer. So the other thing that I will do now, I will open my file system and I will go to the GeoServer store location, or installation location rather. So this is how it looks like. So I'll go to my drive C, program files, GeoServer, and then remember the file was inside BIN folder. You remember even yesterday, I kept on looking at that. And we are going to open this startup. However, this file, I cannot edit it directly. I need to run the editor that I'm using. You can use any editor. If you have Notepad++, if you have Visual Studio Code, if you have, you know, whichever. So in my case, I'll just use the Notepad, the plain Notepad, because that's what I'm assuming most the default Windows has. Okay, but feel free to use whichever editor that you want. If you have, there are so many editors at home and all that, and they are freely available. You can use them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Start. Then I search for Notepad. Then this Notepad, if I just click on it, it's going to run as a normal user. So I want to run it as an administrator, okay? So I'll just right click here and run as an administrator. Then I'll click yes. Then this is what it displays. It displays an empty Notepad. So I'm going to open this file, the startup. So I can either drag and drop it here, but I can click on File, Open, okay? So it will open the file system, and then I will go to my local disk C, program files, GeoServer, bin. Remember yesterday we were also trying something like this, but we are not seeing any files here. Why? It is because if you look at this drop down here, it's looking for specifically text documents. Okay, that's why I was saying if you have an editor like Visual Studio Code, then you can would have been showing files here or any other. So click on this text document if you're using the Notepad like myself. Then you click on All Files. And then you will click on Startup. This is the file that we want to append or to add some things there. So I'll click Open, and this is how it looks like. So I've opened this file, and now I can be able to edit it and save it. Otherwise, if I opened it directly as Notepad, then it may not save it. Okay, it may tell me that I need to be an administrator and all that. Okay. So I will scroll down up to the last file. Most last scripts or the lines towards the last. So we have this run Java. This command actually is the one that is executed when you start your GeoServer. Okay. Okay. So then you have this what you call the Java ops. Java ops, you may see it even in the future if you work with Java softwares or Java-based applications. These are the options. This is where you add verbose, you add details. You know, you want to run with this RAM, you want to use, you know, some kind of a process. You want to use 2 cores of your CPU. You want to use 10 cores in your CPU, if it's, you know, something like that. So whatever is after this ops is, you know, it's all that verbose information. You remember like this, we saw this somewhere in our previous session, GeoServer data dir. It is for the GeoServer data directory. Then we have something else here. So don't worry about the semantics. What I want us to do, I want us to add something here. So after this statement, headless is equals to true, I'm going to add a space. So I've said you have to be careful when you're editing this, because if you omit spaces or you add wrong things, your GeoServer may not run. So I will add a dash here or a hyphen, and then I will add something that is XMS. Sorry, X. There's a capital X and small m and a small s. So this is what you call the minimum memory for your garbage collection. So what is garbage collection? When you close your software like GeoServer, remember it was running some cache, some things here and there. So when you close it, then this, like the tiles that you are doing, may be hanging in somewhere, you get? So whenever you open your GeoServer afresh, remember when you have closed it, like now it's using 0 CPU, 0 RAM. Okay, so when you open it, it shoots, you know, you've seen that it shoots our CPU and it would also shoot our RAM. So we need to give it a base RAM that it's going to use. So that's why I've said if you have a bigger memory in your computer, then the better. So in my case, I already know that the memory that has been set is around 7 GB or 8 GB, isn't it, for my machine? So what I can do, let's say I want to set these to be the minimum. Okay, actually the minimum by default could be 0 or could be 512. So what is the distance? Think of this as a distance. What is the distance, or what is the amount of unit of work that the computer will do to calculate from 5 MB to 7 GB? And if I set the minimum to 7 GB and the maximum to 7 GB, which one does the largest unit of work? Or which one, which one does the computer sweats? It is the previous case, whereby it starts from 0 to 7 GB. In my case, my computer has 7 GB set out for just GeoServer. So I want to change that. I don't want my default to be 0 to 7 GB, because the unit of work that my computer, my CPU takes will be a lot. And that means time. A lot of time is taken. You may not notice it until you have a very big layer or something like that, or you have multiple raster layers that you are doing. So today's case is quite straightforward, because we are using just a bunch of raster files, okay? So I'm doing this, of course, because also the IT, I'm sure we have the IT guys here. So this is what you do to optimize your server. So I will add my minimum memory. So after the XMS, I will add what is 8 GB, that is 8192 MB. Then I will add an M. So this marks the minimum memory that I have, okay? Then I will add a space, and then I will add another variable, which is XMX. So XMX is maximum memory. So if you go and do your research, even after this, and I will advise you to go, and if you read further, you're going to see that the GeoServer, or it states that you need to place them to be equal, so that the unit of work is not a lot. You won't take 2 minutes trying to display some raster, okay, that is in your GeoServer somewhere, okay? So let's put it as 8192, and then don't forget to put an M as a suffix, okay? The M stands for megabytes. I'm not sure if there is a G, but most references uses this, which is M. So after we have done that, so this is what we have. So let me just copy and paste it somewhere in our, so you can use it for your future reference. However, it's still also on the, leave it somewhere on our slides. Yeah, so I'll just save this file after doing that. And let me see what happens to my GeoServer. Let's see if it's gonna misbehave. So I've run it, and I think it is probably, they have not seen any errors here. Okay, let me open my GeoServer. Local, oh, you see, oh, you cannot see my browser. Let me place my browser on the screen. So we have localhost GeoServer. So anyone who has edited their files, cool. So let's see if there's any change or not. So if I click my server status. Okay, mine does not change because I've set the same. Actually, let me try and set it to something else. Let me set mine to about something like slightly above 8. Let me set it to 12 GB. So I'll first stop my GeoServer. So if you do it severally like myself, you'll get used to it. Do it faster. So I'll edit that file. Yeah, so let me add mine to around, that is 10,000. You take care not to add a bigger memory than your RAM. I think GeoServer may not start or yeah, something like that. So 10,000 MB, then I click save. Then I can start my GeoServer. GeoServer. So has yours changed? Whoever, if you have changed it, has it changed on the interface? Okay, that's cool. Okay, let's see what mine shows. Okay, so let me refresh this page. Probably it's going to ask me to log in. Yeah. So I'll put my password and my username and password. So when I log in and click on server status, let's see if anything has changed or nothing. Yeah, do you notice something has changed? Initially it was 7 point something. So it is 9 GB, okay? So I've upgraded in there. I've told the startup that this is the maximum and the minimum amount of RAM that you should use, okay? So that is on the GeoServer optimization, okay? So always remember, if you are going to edit it, do not put it because I'm assuming of course your computer is using other processes. It's using probably Zoom somewhere or you have opened some Word document, so you cannot put all your RAM into GeoServer, okay? So you need to be careful about that. Okay, so now the final thing that we are going to look at is why are we talking about these WMSs, WCSs, and all that? So I don't know which browsers you guys are using, but in this case, I'm going to use Chrome, okay? Chrome as my browser. I've been using Google Chrome. So there's a tool that for Google Chrome that is not even sure if I had already installed it. Can we get these tools, extensions? So there's a tool called Advanced REST Client, okay? So let me just close it and I'll click on, you can search in your Chrome web store. I think it is also there for other browsers. If you are using Mozilla, I presume that it's already there, but let's see. Let me open the Chrome web store. And we have a tool called the Advanced REST Client. You remember yesterday we talked about GeoServer REST. So this is a, I've mistyped, Advanced REST Client. I'm not seeing it here. Then we just Google Advanced REST Client. Yeah, this Advanced REST Client. So this is how it looks like. It has a blue icon and the 2 arrows. So I believe if you're using Mozilla, so for the sake of those, I know you're using different browsers, with the exception of those who are using MacBooks, because I think they're using Safari. I don't know if Safari has that. So let me search here, Advanced REST Client. I'm not sure if there's one for Mozilla. Is there? It doesn't have. Client. I believe it's just limited to Chrome. So I'll show you one application for, yeah, anyway, there are so many. There's another one called Postman and all those. There are many, so you can take your time and research. I think you can also install for Windows. I'm seeing like it's there for, I'm downloading it for Windows. So anyway, I'm going to share the link. you guys in the chat. So what is there is that we are going to use it. And let me show you, because I've already installed in my Google Chrome. So I'll just launch it. And when I launch it, this is how it looks like, okay? So this is what, you remember we talked about the GeoServer REST API. So I'm going to click on GeoServer. So to access the GeoServer REST, you can just click on these services, okay? It will show you the capabilities. Does it support WFS? You know, you can create a GeoServer and choose to disable those services because you're probably using it within your organization. You don't want to use it outside. You can use some way to disable them. So in this case, I want us to check on WMS. So I'll right click on WMS version 1.30 and copy the link address, okay? I'll copy the link address and then I'll paste it in this client. So there's a URL place here. So I'll just add this and then I'll click send. So basically what it's doing, it's going to the server and requesting the capabilities. What does my WMS support? Okay, you notice that it is taking some time to load. So there's a green button here that shows 200. Okay, that means it has connected. Okay, it's forgetting what they are called, HTTP codes. So it's actually green, so it shows that it has connected. So it has displayed some beautifully colored information here. That's why I would urge you to use this to test your GeoServer. And in this case, you see what is this service? It is WMS. I've requested for WMS. And then it shows the details, contact person. You remember where we were editing contact, organization, predictive analytics, and all this. Then it shows all this. So it shows that you can be able to use the get map command to get our layers, image, PNG, as atom, as JSON, PDF, JPEG. It supports all these data exchange, okay? So I can be able to tell from this thing that is what it supports. Then get feature info, it gives us plain text, GML. You remember we talked about the GML data and JSON. So if you scroll down here, you remember we were talking about CRS. So it supports all these, and I'm sure this list is quite big. These are the coordinate systems that it supports. So I'm not sure if we will see the MSA, but you see the way the list is long. So the list is quite long. So the bounding box, the layers, you see these are the layers that it has by default. The style, you remember the points were being represented in red. So this is where it shows the definition of those styles. Okay, so that is one example. So this, whatever we have done here is the same as you coming and clicking here. If you click on this WMS, it's going to display this kind of information. But you see here, you do not, somebody does not understand what this just looks like. It's a text file, okay, of so much information. Okay, so basically, what can we do with this? Let's see. So I think we can also be able to create change what is it called, the background. The background of your layer. Let's see, we are going to test that with one of our layers. So what we have done, we have where is my rest? We have this is what you call the get capabilities, okay? If you look at these requests, the request here is called get capabilities, shows the capabilities of our GeoServer. So with the other thing that we are going to use, we can put a request for get map. And then inside the get map, you can add, some things like I'm trying to think around what you can do. You can be able to look at something like the width and the height and the, let's see if you can get an output here. And not have spaces. Yeah, so it's saying that no layers have been requested, so I need to add a layer. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to add my layer, one of the layers. So I'm going to fetch a layer from these layers. And I'll use something like these GHA countries. So let me just open it, a new tab. So I'm going to add these GHA countries. So I'm going to paste it here. But this is layers. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's telling me that I must include a bounding box. So let me add, let me also go back to my browser and look for the bounding box. I think it should be, for you to be able to do this, you can use the layer preview. So for the layer preview, I'll click on open layers. And this is what it gives me. So I can use the bounding box, which is quite long, to here. And then I can add it here. Okay. Yeah, so there's something that is trying to fetch. So you see how it looks like here? It is jumbled information. But when we do this in our browser, or in our browser, this is what we are going to get. So what is funny about this image? Yeah, it is compressed. This is because of the height. I think I've added some funny height somewhere. There's a height. This height is 330. So let me see if I increase it to 600, what happens? And click enter. Do you see it changes? Okay. Then I think another thing that I can do, I'm not sure though, but I think I can change the background. Yeah, so I've found the command. It is, let me add it here. And so I'll add an and BG color is equals to, not sure if words will work, yellow. Yeah, BG color yellow is incorrect. So let me add something else. Let me try and fetch what you call the, so basically what I'm trying to show you is that you can be able to edit your, layer background. You've seen a lot of maps that have green, blue, and all that. So they normally use the colors, but these colors are usually in some kind of a hexadecimal code. So I'm trying to see if it will work. The hash. Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I've added a black background. Can you see that? Then let me try and add a white background using 1Fs. Or let me try and add some ones inside here. 1, 2. Yeah, you see the background has changed. So this is one of the operations, but there are many other operations that you can use with your WMS. Okay. You can change the background. You can change so many things in your image. You can change the height. So this is what is basically used when you are working with web maps. And I think we may see this even in the coming days. Okay. So I think we have covered what we needed to cover for this session. And in conclusion, yeah, we've been able to play around with the memory. We have been able to look at the GeoWebCache. And what I would like to, do you have any questions at the moment? None? So we will, if you have any questions, feel free to even inquire and ask them in the group, okay? In our group. And I would like to thank you for your participation. I believe also the session today has been interactive. And we will keep on looking at this because now we have jumped into the web GIS. So tomorrow we'll be looking at something else. Among them are open layers and post-GIS, working with post-GIS layers in GeoServer, okay? So thank you for your participation. I would like to wish you a good night and a good day tomorrow as well, until we meet for our next session, okay? Yeah. So thank you.